So picture this massive, heavily coated animal just, moving through a freezing Swiss farm on a crisp morning. You can practically see the breath pluming in the air.
Oh, absolutely. The visual is so distinct.
Right. And this animal isn't sprinting, it's not frantic or like bouncing off the walls. It is moving with this incredibly steady, purposeful, just immense weight behind every single step.
Yeah, you see those powerful shoulders, right? That heavy body engineered to pull a substantial cart of a steep mountain path if it had to.
Exactly. There's zero wasted motion. Just steady, unrelenting usefulness.
Because it's a creature perfectly adapted to a very specific, a very demanding biomechanical reality. The physical structure is entirely dictated by the demands of an alpine farm.
Then you take that exact same genetic blueprint and you drop it onto, say, a slippery linoleum floor in a modern, climate-controlled suburb.
Right, and that is where the biology starts to seriously clash with the lifestyle.
Yeah, and that tension right there, that is the mission of our deep dive today. We're looking at a really detailed dossier on the health, weight, and exercise protocols of the Bernese Mountain Dog.
And we're going to use those sources to answer a much bigger question about, well, biomechanics and evolutionary mismatch.
Which is fascinating, by the way. I mean,
Yeah.
it's basically a master class in what happens when human affection just completely alters the environment of an animal built for heavy labor.
It forces us to ask some really profound questions about how we define exercise and, how we perceive health in general.
Because we love to project our own habits, right? Like, I need to go for a 10-mile run to burn off calories, so my dog must need that too.
Exactly. We project modern human habits onto animals built for a completely different world.
And just a quick note before we really jump into the biological mechanisms here. This deep dive is strictly for educational purposes. We're analyzing research to pull out the big insights for you.
Right. So if you're noticing any health changes in your own dog, veterinary guidance is paramount.
Always. We are here to explore the science, not to act as a replacement for your vet.
Absolutely. It's about giving you information and context, not a diagnosis.
So let's start with this concept of what I call the kitchen floor draft horse. Because the sources make it really clear that before we can even talk about how to exercise this breed, we have to understand what it actually is.
And that means tearing down the two biggest misconceptions owners have. Which is funny because they usually sit at complete opposite ends of the spectrum.
Right, which is why it's so confusing for a well-meaning owner.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. It's kind of like taking a retired heavyweight powerlifter, right?
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, so on one hand, you can't expect a powerlifter to just sleep on the couch all day every day just because they're massive.
Right, they need to move.
But on the other hand, you can't expect them to suddenly go out and run a marathon either. Their cardiovascular system, their joints, they're built for torque and strength, not, sustained high-impact distance.
Exactly. Neither extreme makes sense for that kind of physical frame, and that's brilliant because the first assumption people make is that the Bernese is inherently lazy.
Because they're big and calm.
Right. People see them lying peacefully across the kitchen floor, totally unfazed by the household chaos, and they just assume the dog is basically a decorative rug.
A very fluffy rug.
Yeah, exactly. They think the dog is content to just lie around 24/7 without any physical exertion.
But the sources stress that this is still a working breed. The calmness isn't laziness. It's actually the conservation of energy.
Precisely. A dog bred to pull carts and herd cattle all day doesn't waste energy bouncing off the walls.
It's saving it for the work.
Yes. But then you have the second assumption, and ironically, it's often held by the exact same owner on a different day of the week.
Oh, totally. Like Saturday morning rolls around.
Right. They look at this imposing dog and think, well, it's strong, it's a huge animal, it must be an endurance athlete. So they take it to the dog park and expect it to sprint around chasing tennis balls for 2 straight hours.
Like it's a border collie or something.
Exactly. And that is where you see massive physical breakdowns. Our sources emphasize that the truth sits right in the middle.
This breed doesn't need harder exercise. It needs wiser exercise.
Yes, wiser exercise. What's fascinating here is how the whole concept of exercise has to be redefined for them. The goal isn't cardiovascular exhaustion.
Right.
The goal is keeping the body sound, the weight healthy, supporting the joints, and keeping the mind genuinely engaged.
So modern owners basically have to consciously recreate that steady usefulness the dog was bred for.
Exactly, because if you just try to tire them out through sheer physical exhaustion, you are quite literally going to break the dog's body.
Okay, but I'm struggling with a bit of a contradiction here. If I own this dog, The sources say they were historically bred for heavy labor.
Right.
But if I can't take them for a long run without destroying their joints, and they aren't, pulling milk carts through my neighborhood anymore, aren't they going to just destroy my house out of sheer boredom?
Well, that is a very valid concern.
Like, how do you give a working dog a job without breaking its body?
And that brings us perfectly to how we define purpose over space. And it means we have to bust one of the most pervasive myths in modern dog ownership, which is the myth of the backyard.
Oh, yes, the backyard myth.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people listening might assume that, well, big dog plus big yard equals problem solved.
It's a very common assumption.
You just open the sliding glass door, the dog trots out, and boom, your obligation is fulfilled for the morning. But just opening the back door isn't actually giving them a purpose, is it?
Not at all. A dog wandering around a yard is not exercising. The yard gives them space, yes, but it does not give them a purpose.
Right.
If you put a human in an empty gymnasium and lock the door, they aren't going to automatically start doing wind sprints to optimize their heart rate.
No, I'd probably just walk a quick lap, get bored, and sit down.
Exactly. You'd sit by the door and wait to be let out. And for a breed like the Bernese, which was designed fundamentally as a farm companion, they were never meant to be solitary objects left alone in a field.
Because their entire psychology is based on having a job alongside their humans.
Yes, alongside. Leaving them alone in a yard completely ignores their deep-seated psychological need to participate in your routine.
So, practically speaking, what does a role actually look like for a modern Bernese? Because the sources admit there is no, single universal number for how much exercise they need.
Right. It fluctuates based on age, weather, joint health, all of that.
But they really highlight mental stimulation.
Mental stimulation is the secret weapon here. We are talking about calm, problem-solving, scent games, carrying objects, and just structured family routines.
I actually found the section on sniffing to be particularly interesting. Because I think as humans, when we take a dog on a walk, we view sniffing as an interruption to the exercise, right?
Oh, absolutely. We're like, come on, keep moving, keep the heart rate up.
Exactly. We want to keep the pace up. But the source explicitly frames sniffing as a primary form of exertion.
And we have to understand canine anatomy to get why this matters. A dog's olfactory system is a massive biological processing center.
It's huge.
Yeah, so when a dog is deeply engaged in sniffing a trail, they are utilizing a massive amount of neural activity. It requires intense focus and blood flow to the brain.
So sniffing and training are not lesser forms of exercise just because they look physically calm to us?
Not at all. Processing complex scents genuinely tires them out cognitively, which is great because it fulfills that need for a job without artificially jacking up their adrenaline or pounding their joints on the pavement.
Okay, but speaking of jobs, carding brings up another biological contradiction for me.
Oh, carding. Yeah.
We just said they need a job. And the source heavily features carding as an incredible nod to their heritage. It's literally in their DNA.
It is.
But if I go out, buy a harness, and hook up a one-year-old Bernese to a wagon, the source says I could permanently damage them. So if it's in their blood to pull things, why does their physical readiness lag so far behind their instincts?
Because instinct matures far faster than bone density.
Wow. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, karting is a fantastic activity, but it comes with intense biological guardrails. You just cannot let a dog's enthusiasm override its skeletal development.
So just because they want to pull doesn't mean they're structurally sound enough to pull.
Exactly. The source is adamant about this. Karting requires a fully mature dog. That means waiting until their growth plates are entirely closed and the skeleton is solid bone.
Which takes a long time for a giant breed.
It really does. It also requires a dog that has been gradually conditioned for that specific muscular strain over time. You need the exact right anatomical equipment to distribute weight safely.
And ideally, you're doing this under the guidance of someone genuinely qualified, right?
Yes. Because if you introduce hauling torque to an immature skeleton, you are asking for lifelong orthopedic issues.
Which perfectly sets up the next major revelation from the source material. We've established they need a structured role and steady movement. But to do that safely, their physical framework has to be maintained perfectly. And that is incredibly hard to do because of the way this dog looks. The fluff illusion.
The fluff illusion is so real. The double coat is incredible camouflage.
Here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Because the fluff is basically a disguise. You might look at your dog and think they look majestically large, broad, and powerful.
But underneath all that fur...
Yeah, underneath, their joints might actually be sounding a massive alarm.
A Bernese's sheer size and that thick volume of fur can easily mislead a well-intentioned owner. People constantly conflate the concept of big with the concept of fit.
And when you are dealing with a giant breed, extra weight isn't just a cosmetic issue, it's an orthopedic crisis.
It really is. You cannot evaluate the body condition of this breed by size alone or by just looking at them from across the living room.
So what do you do?
You have to physically get your hands deep into that fur. You must learn to physically feel their ribs. You have to check for a tucked waist.
Because if you let an extra 5 or 10 pounds of fat hide under that coat, the physics of gravity will just systematically destroy their hips, their elbows, their knees, and their spine.
Oh, absolutely. Not to mention, it completely ruins their heat tolerance and stamina.
Right. But the source also points out that the opposite problem occurs in senior dogs. We fixate so much on fat gain, but muscle loss is just as critical to monitor as they age.
Muscle is the primary shock absorber for the skeletal system. As a giant dog ages, if they lose that supportive muscle mass around the hips and shoulders, the skeleton starts taking 100% of the impact with every step.
Ouch.
Yeah. So body condition monitoring is a lifelong, highly tactile commitment. It's a tightrope walk. You need the movement to maintain the muscle, but you can't over-exercise the joints to get it.
Okay, so let's say someone listening right now goes and checks their dog's ribs, and they realize, uh-oh, the fluff was hiding 7 extra pounds.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
The immediate human instinct is to panic, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want to put them on a crash diet or just drastically increase their exercise to burn the calories off.
Which is exactly how you trigger an injury. No crash diets. No sudden, intense physical exertion.
The source is very clear about that. Weight loss for this massive frame requires a highly controlled, vet-guided plan.
It means accurately measuring food cups. It means accounting for every single training treat.
And it requires getting the entire family coordinated on strict feeding rules, which, let's be real, no, secretly slipping them a piece of toast when no one is looking.
Right. The family coordination is probably the hardest part. It only takes one soft-hearted person in the house to entirely derail the math.
Definitely. And physically, it means a very gradual, slow increase in low-impact movement.
Because the joints are the limiting factor. Always.
Always. And the source breaks down this joint-conscious movement into 2 categories, basically puppies and adults. Let's dig into the puppy anatomy for a second, because this really clarifies why the rules are so strict.
Let's look at the actual anatomy of a giant breed puppy. When they're young, their long bones haven't fused yet. The ends of their bones, the growth plates, are literally made of soft cartilage, not hard calcified bone.
Okay, so when a 60-pound puppy jumps off a couch, the kinetic force doesn't get safely absorbed by strong ligaments and solid bone.
Exactly. That massive kinetic energy slams directly into that soft cartilage. If you allow that to happen repeatedly, the bone actually grows deformed.
Wow.
Yeah, that is exactly how early environmental stress triggers things like hip and elbow dysplasia later in life.
Which totally explains the incredibly strict rules in the source. I mean, yes, puppies need movement and play, but absolutely no forced long walks.
None.
No repetitive running, no high-impact jumping. You have to control their use of stairs. You have to put down rugs over those slippery linoleum floors we talked about. And you have to prevent wrestling with older, heavier dogs.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, protecting those soft growth plates in youth directly dictates their mobility in old age. A gentle giant should carry strength, not unnecessary weight or trauma.
And rest for a puppy isn't laziness.
Yeah.
They need tremendous amounts of sleep to fuel that rapid skeletal growth.
So much sleep.
But as they transition into adulthood, they can handle more sustained activity, right? It just becomes a matter of watching for the warning signs that their joints are struggling.
Right. As adults, you are looking for limping, obviously. But the sources highlight more subtle mechanical failures.
Like what?
Stiffness when they first wake up from a nap, reluctance to get up from the floor, or a bunny-hopping gait in the back legs.
Oh, explain the mechanics of the bunny hop. Because I think a lot of people might just think it looks cute when their dog runs like a rabbit.
Yeah, a lot of people do. But a healthy dog runs by extending and driving with their back legs independently, using the full range of motion in their hips. When a dog is experiencing hip pain or structural weakness, they will subconsciously fuse the movement of their back legs. They bring both back legs forward at the exact same time, like a bunny hopping, to minimize the independent rotation of the hip joint.
Oh, wow. So it's a compensatory mechanism to avoid pain.
Exactly. It is fascinating from a biomechanical standpoint, but it's a huge red flag.
And the universal rule for all of these warning signs, whether it's the bunny hop, stiffness, or pain when touched, is that you do not play doctor at home.
Never. These signs require a veterinary assessment. You cannot diagnose a bunny hop in your driveway because it could be a temporary muscle strain or it could be the early onset of severe degenerative joint disease.
Okay, so we've covered the psychological need for a job and the physical need to protect the joints from the sheer mechanics of their own weight.
Yep.
But none of this happens in a vacuum. Because of the Bernese's specific biological makeup, the external environment, meaning the weather, and their internal biology, meaning digestion, act as incredibly strict boundaries on when and how they can exercise safely.
We are talking about the two elements of extreme danger for this breed, heat and gastric dilatation volvulus, commonly known as bloat.
Let's start with the heat. The source highlights this as the single most breed-specific safety topic to master.
It really cannot be overstated. We have to remember the thermodynamics of that double coat. It is designed to act like a thermos, trapping core body heat to keep them alive in sub-zero alpine winds.
Which is great in Switzerland.
Right. But in a modern setting, that means warm weather, humidity, direct sun, and hot pavement are absolutely brutal on them. Their bodies just cannot efficiently cool down.
So what a lean, short-coated dog can handle easily on a 75-degree day might push a Bernese into heat exhaustion.
Exactly.
The source dictates that exercise must be strictly moved to the cooler parts of the day, early morning or late evening. But this brings up a really interesting human psychology problem.
Oh, the guilt.
Yes. What does this all mean for the highly motivated owner who feels incredibly guilty skipping a walk on a humid 90-degree day? Because as humans, we are conditioned by diet and fitness culture to believe that skipping a workout is, like, a moral failure.
It is a massive mindset shift. True care means adapting to the dog's biology, not managing your own human guilt.
That's a great point.
Large bodies, especially heavily insulated ones, require genuine physiological safety. If it is hot and humid outside, keeping them inside in the air conditioning is an act of profound love.
Pushing them on a walk in the heat just to satisfy your own need to cross a chore off a list is genuinely dangerous.
Precisely. Doing nothing is actually the most responsible form of dog parenting in that moment.
And you must know the distress signs. Heavy panting is the first clue, but you're also watching for them actively seeking out shade, excessive drooling, sudden weakness, confusion, or vomiting.
If you see those, you don't just walk slower. You stop immediately, cool them down safely, and contact a vet.
And we should briefly note, while cold is totally their element, owners still need to be thoughtful in winter. Ice is essentially just a frozen version of that slippery kitchen floor, posing a huge risk to those joints we just spent so much time talking about protecting.
Oh yeah, a slip on the ice can tear a cruciate ligament just as easily as wiping out on linoleum.
Okay, so that is the external boundary, the weather. But the internal boundary is an anatomical quirk that is essential to understand. We have to talk about exercise timing around meals because of the risk of bloat.
The source stresses the risk of gastric dilatation volvulus. And this isn't just a bad case of indigestion or, an upset stomach. It is a catastrophic mechanical failure that is highly prevalent in deep-chested breeds.
Explain the physics of that deep chest because it really makes the danger make sense.
So because the chest cavity of a Bernese is so deep and cavernous, the stomach isn't snugly packed in. It has room to swing, almost like a hammock suspended inside the abdomen.
Okay, I'm picturing that.
If a dog gulps down a massive meal or drinks a huge amount of water, that stomach becomes incredibly heavy. If you then immediately take that dog out to run in the yard or they start rolling around vigorously, that heavy, food-filled stomach can gain momentum like a pendulum.
Oh, wow.
It can literally flip over on its axis, twisting the entry and exit points, completely sealing itself shut.
Which traps all the internal gases as the food ferments, expanding the stomach like a balloon, cutting off blood supply, and sending the dog into severe systemic shock.
Exactly. Exercising heavily on a completely full stomach is introducing violent physical sloshing to a highly vulnerable digestive tract.
This is why the source insists that intense activity must be avoided immediately before and after large meals.
You also have to monitor how they eat. If they are gulping massive amounts of air along with their food, that introduces more gas into that hammock, increasing the risk.
The warning signs for bloat listed in the source are very specific, and I want to make sure we list them clearly for you listening right now.
Yes, please.
You are looking for abdominal distension, meaning the stomach looks visibly swollen or hard to the touch. Unproductive retching, which looks like they are trying to throw up, but nothing comes out because the stomach is twisted shut. Severe restlessness, excessive drooling, weakness, and ultimately collapse.
The source is entirely uncompromising here. This combination of signs is an absolute drop everything emergency.
You do not wait to see if they feel better in an hour.
No, you do not try a home remedy. You put them in the car and get them to an emergency vet immediately, because survival is entirely dependent on surgical intervention.
It is intense. But understanding the mechanics of it underscores this overarching theme in the source material. Caring for a dog of this size and specific evolutionary background requires a level of intentionality that goes way beyond just filling a food bowl and throwing a tennis ball in the backyard.
It really does. If we synthesize the core philosophy we've pulled from the research today, it all points directly back to that image of the Swiss farm we started with.
The breed was built for steady, deliberate work, not reckless exhaustion.
Right. The ultimate goal of managing their exercise, precisely controlling their weight, protecting those soft puppy joints, and navigating the environmental risks of heat and bloat isn't about fitness in the abstract.
Right. They aren't training to win a triathlon.
No. The entirety of this protocol is about one thing, and that is preserving their mobility.
Mobility as freedom. That concept from the source material is so powerful. Staying mobile is what allows the Bernese to keep rising from the floor to greet you when you come home from work.
Yeah.
It's what lets them keep following you from the kitchen to the living room,
Yeah.
simply wanting to be near you. It's what lets them keep participating fully in the daily life of the family that they are so deeply attached to.
For a giant breed, mobility is quite literally their world. When they lose the ability to move comfortably due to joint pain or excess weight, their world shrinks dramatically.
It's heartbreaking.
It is. All of this, the careful feeding, the avoidance of heat, the mental stimulation, it is all an investment in keeping their world as large as possible for as long as possible.
Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with. Something to mull over as you think about this deep dive. We've talked so much about their physical and psychological evolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
How their very bones and brains were shaped by working alongside humans in the Alps, pulling carts, guarding the property, acting as true partners in harsh conditions.
It's a deep bond.
Exactly. So if that history is so deeply hardwired into their DNA, then maybe for a Bernese Mountain Dog, a structured, purposeful walk isn't just a mechanical requirement to keep their joints lubricated.
What do you mean?
Maybe sharing that steady, purposeful movement with you is fundamentally their love language. Maybe walking calmly by your side, sniffing the air, and following your lead is their way of proving they're still a vital, working part of your family's farm, even if that farm is just a suburban house with linoleum floors.
Oh, that is a beautiful way to look at it. You aren't just walking a dog, you are giving them back their purpose.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating biology of the Bernese Mountain Dog. As always, remember to consult your veterinarian for any health concerns, weight management plans, or changes in your own dog's routine. Keep learning, keep observing, and we will catch you next time.